Hi, and welcome to the Power of Connection and Biz show. I'm Kimberly Lane, executive leadership coach, team building partner, best-selling author, and your host. Today's guest is a seasoned entrepreneur, having founded and grown several companies, including a clock manufacturing company and 2 infomercial distribution companies. After many years as a confidant and mentor to CEOs, she's become a certified growth advisor who is dedicated to guiding and supporting the execution of ridiculously successful growth plans and amazing cultures. Currently, she is CEO of Awake University, which is an emerging knowledge platform and community that works to spotlight thought leaders and to offer courses online with affiliate opportunities. That's not all. There's more. She's author of the award-winning book, A CEO's Secret Weapon: How to Accelerate Success. This book details your why as the engine to overcome challenges, and it has a foreword by Mr. Y himself, Simon Sinek. Please welcome our wonderful guest today, Dr. Frumi.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm delighted to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it will. Always is. And it's really have been looking forward to our time together. So let's just jump into it. So in exploring the power of human connection, how have you created powerful connections with people during this unusual time we've just been going through?
I would tell you that I've done it extremely intentionally. So I decided, since I was in a 21st floor apartment in Kansas City, I was there because I was involved, and I am still involved as co-founder of a pet technology company. I was there with no balcony and no opening windows, a dog and a cat. So I thought, this isn't going to work for week after week. What can I do to actually stay human? So I met with several different people, but what I decided to do was to meet with them once a month. So when I found that I really engaged with people, and I found that one-on-one, it was actually more intimate than even sitting down in a coffee house where there's distractions, people walking by, baristas, etc., noise. It was just one-on-one, like me with you right this minute. And I decided, I really like this person, or I'm really in alignment with this person, or there's so many possibilities that we could collaborate, that at the end of every conversation, we set the next meeting for a month from that day. And as a result, over the years, so in 14 months, 14 meetings, you get to know someone pretty well. And that was a very intentional way to, first of all, manage my sanity, and second of all, to develop some really deep relationships and connections. So I would just say, if we ever have to do this again, and I still do it, by the way, even now that things are opening up, I still meet with those same people, and it's really enriched my life. And I really recommend to anybody to think intentionally about those connections and foster them, nurture them.
Yeah, I like the word intentional. And it's interesting that you've decided, in these people that you've decided to connect with, that you've continued the conversations on a monthly basis, which I think really allows you to get to the next depth of really getting to know somebody, right? Not just on a superficial level, but really getting to know them and their stories or their challenges, or just, their own emotional issues they might be going through during this past 14 months we've been experiencing. So very, very awesome. So have you continued that now moving forward, and that things are opening up, or how have you transitioned that whole relationship and connecting that you started?
Well, one of the big questions everybody has is, when do we get back to in person, even people who are vaccinated? I think many people, me included, I used to go out all the time. And then I really resented having my freedom taken away from me during the whole COVID period. But even once it ended, I felt a lot of trepidation going out. And so even though I wanted to meet with people, even my family, I was afraid to hug people. And that really kind of changes how you interact with people and how the connection kind of can erode. So I've had to really make it my business, first of all, to continue those connections with people who could be anywhere. I moved back from Kansas City to LA. And so I'm talking to people now in Kansas City, in Denver, in the Bay Area, all over the place. So I don't want to stop that. I think that's really fabulous. And so I've also had really a conversation with myself to say, you've got to go out every single day. You can't just hide in your apartment. So I actually walk with my dog every single morning, and that's just me and my dog, right? So I make a point to go to the grocery store, to go somewhere, to the dog groomer, so that I actually don't feel as hesitant going out. I think we all become a little bit agoraphobic during this period. I'm not alone.
No, you're definitely not alone. It's interesting. I really need people in my life and need to be out connecting with people. And, I speak a lot about that. We have consciously, before the pandemic, decided to start removing human touch points from our life, meaning we do self check-in, self check-out. We have everything delivered to us at the house. We start working out from home. And, we were all moving in that direction through convenience, right? And then with the pandemic, we were forced to stay home. And all of a sudden we didn't like that because it wasn't a choice anymore, right? So I applaud you in realizing that those human touch points, even though they're just going to the grocery store or walking the dog and running into somebody else with the dog and having a conversation, I really feel like those are important human touch points that we need to really keep going in our life, because they're, one, impromptu, and two, they're just socially necessary. So very, very awesome.
So I'll tell you a little story. I live in an apartment building. There's probably 300 apartments in this building. I chose it specifically because it's a 30-mile walk from two of my sons in each direction. And I thought, what did I learn from this pandemic? Well, one thing is I could make different choices. So I live on the west side of LA. I would have loved to live in the marina, but that would have been further. And I just decided, you know what, if things change again, I want to be somewhere more accessible. The other day I went downstairs and I met one of my neighbors who I'd seen several times, but of course everyone's always wearing a mask. You don't even know what they look like. And stopped and talked to him and found out that he was having hip surgery tomorrow. And so I just said to him, so how are you getting along with your hip surgery? Do you have people to, take your dog for a walk and things like that? And as a result, I actually made a new friend. I stopped right there and then, put his number in my phone. And he said that he called the hospital to make sure that he was on for Saturday and found out his surgery was actually tomorrow.
Oh.
And so we had to shift all these arrangements that he made. And so I'm walking his dog when he gets home from the hospital. And that was just something that, I may never have done before. But I'd like to even know somebody in my building.
No, I think this whole pandemic has made us realize how much we need each other and the fragility of those relationships and humans in general, right? And I do see that. I do see more people reaching out or being more thoughtful or engaging. I'll have a similar example. I recently went through knee surgery and I was walking the other day with my dog and I had my kind of a knee brace on, and the gentleman across the street walking his dog, who I might have seen once or twice in the past. And I just waved, said hi. And he goes, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Of course." So he walks across the street with his dog. He goes, "You just had knee surgery, did you not?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, how was it?" So we proceeded to have a conversation about which doctor is the best and some of the healing tactics that I've learned. But I don't know necessarily what I've gotten into that conversation, a year and a half ago, or he would have asked to have a conversation, right? So I'm seeing that as things are opening up, and it's really an interesting dynamic that I think we're in a weird way, we're all realizing we need to be around more people and have more connections and strengthen those than we did before, because we've all been so isolated during this time. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. I think that's wonderful. I meet people on my walk too. I might have walked by them 10 times, and by the 11th, we're saying, "Hi, what's your name? I see your dog." And you know what? I know everybody's dog's name better than the people. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
For some reason, it's much more, it's less difficult to remember the dog's name, right, than the owner's name for some reason. I'm not sure what. But
and you know what? It doesn't feel as intrusive saying, "What's your dog's name?" Sometimes when you ask what's your name, someone kind of goes, "Oh, I don't know you well enough yet to tell you my name," but they'll tell you their dog's name.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. I'll get that a lot. Well, they remember my dog's name, Sammy, but they won't remember my name. And it's usually vice versa. So it's okay. It seems to be the rule with regards to dogs and dog owners, right? The dogs are much more attractive or cuter, right?
That's so much fun. When I moved to Kansas City, I joined the dog club there. I thought of all the things I could do to meet people, what would be the best kind of meetup to do? And I actually joined a dog club.
There's a meetup for a dog club?
There is in Kansas City.
Wow. And what did you do? Just meet for walks and things of that sort?
Yeah, we met for walks and we met at restaurants where there was outdoor seating so you could bring your dog. And that was the best way to meet people. So that's one of the ways I make connections.
I love it. I might steal that personally, if you don't
Go
mind.
right ahead. Oops, here comes a
Yeah.
cat.
So maybe start one here in Orange County. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to some of your questions, but I've loved our dialogue. It's fun. So you talk a little bit as far as you worked a lot with startups, and I know it seems you're very savvy with your own. How would you recommend that startups attract the talent they need, and how would they do that through connections?
You know, I love the term virtual bench. So when you think about soccer players or baseball players who are sitting on the bench, you can imagine a virtual bench of talent. So the way you do that is you ask everybody you know way before you meet them, who do you know who is the most incredible, let's say, social media person? And you just kind of collect those people. You ask for introductions, you meet them, and you say something like this: we are going to need a social media expert at Scholar, which happens to be Smart Collar, the pet technology company that I'm a co-founder of. We don't need you yet, but we will at some time in the future. May I continue to interact with you and check on you periodically so that when we're ready, I can steal you from wherever you are. And you know what? That works really, really well. And our first two hires were people that I had met maybe 4 or 5 months before and nurtured that way. So by creating a virtual bench, what that means is you're not hiring people at the last minute when you're desperate for someone, let's say, to take over accounting. Then you end up hiring someone who breathes out well on a mirror, right? But if you know ahead of time and you just nurture that person, if they're passionate about the same things that you're passionate about, like you and I have been talking about dogs, ours is a pet technology company. So people who are passionate about one of them actually is a young, I guess, Generation Z person, and his parents are vets. So he said, oh, please just keep me on that virtual bench. Whenever you're ready, I'm excited. I want to be part of your company. And so we talked in email, and every now and then we Zoomed for 6 months, and then he joined the company because we were ready for him. So he's now in charge of e-commerce for us.
Wow. So you've been cultivating your virtual bench
Yes.
over time. What a great idea. I love it. You're just really building your connections as you go along, seeing the value in people. And then you kind of build your virtual bench through these connection Rolodex you're making. I really love that. What a great way to do that, because you're really building the right resources and you're not in a desperate mode to find talent. You've already been pooling that great talent, right? And it's just waiting for an opportunity to enlist them, right?
And just think also, one of the important things when you hire people is to make sure that their core values are aligned with yours. And what better way to find that out over time? Because you can't test that in one interview. You know, but over time, let's say one of our core values is family first, both human and furry. But let's say that that wasn't true because we didn't live our value.
Right.
You would find that out over 6 months, right? Not in one interview. So it's really important when you're hiring to hire the right people for the right seats, and they have to be aligned with core values. So by nurturing the virtual bench, that's a really good way to figure that out.
Definitely. I always like to say in any given relationship, I always like to see 4 seasons, just because you see, things happen, right? Stress, changes, challenges, et cetera, issues, conflicts, right? And so you want to go through that process, and that alignment is so key from a belief foundation and overall culture. So wow, what a great idea.
Thank you.
Very good. Phenomenal.
You can steal it.
I might. That's okay. We've got 2 so far, right?
Right.
So one-on-one connection is one thing, kind of what you've done with creating your virtual benches. And then additionally, what you've done in the last 14 months with your virtual conversations. How would you help teams to deepen their connections so they can foster success?
Oh, that's a great question. So I believe in using assessments, and my favorite is a combination of DISC, which you're probably familiar with, but the important part of DISC is that Pat Lencioni, who wrote so many fables about teamwork and trust and vulnerability-based trust, etc., he has assessment that's tied to DISC. So in addition to finding out your DISC profile, you can also figure out the 5 cohesive behaviors of a team. And so it's based on vulnerability-based trust. And then when a team has that trust, then they're able to have constructive conflict. And I love mining for conflict, because in any team, if you ask them how to make a decision, often they kind of look at you like deer in the headlights, because they don't have a methodology. But when you can prod and mine for conflict, then any idea can be collaborated on to become much, much better. And then once that happens, people leave the room, boardroom or any room that making decisions, with a commitment. Because how many times have you seen in groups where everyone says, yeah, and then they don't do anything about it because they're not really committed. So when you have vulnerability-based trust, you can have constructive conflict, make commitments to each other, and then most importantly, hold each other accountable to those commitments, and that's how you get results. So when you take an assessment and you find out, this was one of my absolute favorite teams. They were a team of 7 former CEOs. They were all millennials. They were all incredible, as it happened, young men. And when they took the test, you have a choice of being, or it turns out that you're either green, yellow, red on these different areas. They were green on everything except accountability. They were yellow on accountability, and they were shocked. What do you mean? And so we were able to work on the accountability piece, which is really what I was there for anyway, so it worked out perfectly. And we created an execution plan so that everybody knew how they support, first of all, creating the priorities for the quarter, and then how everybody was accountable for their own priority. And that way we were able to hold each other accountable through a process, not through punishment or blame game or anything like that. And so I found that assessment was extremely pivotal in creating those connections and that strong feeling of family and fun that you want to have in a company. You don't want to feel like, you want it to be safe, right? I think safety and
totally. And you have to be able to be vulnerable, and within that vulnerability, trusting enough to be able to express your ideas and to challenge the conversation. I don't want to say necessarily create conflict, but that's the productivity there, right? That's the ability to create successful strategy, right? And implement it. If you have differences of opinion, if people are able to voice those differences of opinion, but collectively come to a decision because they all buy in, right? And then you get that accountability to implement. So
exactly. And you know what? One of my favorite trust building exercises yields so much amazing information. So it's this, you just ask people, where did you grow up? Where do you have siblings? And if so, where in the birth order were you? And thirdly, what was your biggest challenge as a child? So you're not saying, intrusively, what is it now? And so when you hear about here's what happened with that same team, actually, they found out that several of them had military parents that moved them around. And so their biggest challenge was having to go to a new school every other year. And they looked at each other like, how did I not know that about you? But imagine the bond that's then created for all the offline conversations about, okay, where were you based? And where was your dad based? And, oh, it was your mother who was in the Air Force? All those kind of things that really build that trust, knowing that somewhere at your core, you're so similar.
Right. And I think when people have something to hook a connection on, meaning something that's familiar, they all were raised with a military family, and they all had that common experience of having to travel constantly and make new friends, and then either survive socially, right, or withdraw. And obviously these individuals have survived, right, by learning to be able to overcome that. So I think trying to find that one common experience, and when we can find it, I believe based on something from our youth, is really powerful in creating that connection. Another question I like to always ask too is, what was your first job growing up? Because that always becomes It could, a unique story to go along with it. Like someone was a, who knows, maybe he was a dog walker, or she was working in a bakery, or who knows what it was. But I think that always can be a little fascinating too, to hear what everybody's first job was.
I can't remember the last time anybody asked me that. My first job was in an operating room.
Wow.
So the job was actually washing the instruments before they went in the autoclave to get sterilized. But my grandmother arranged it because it was a small hospital in Montreal, and she knew the owner of the hospital. And I wanted to study to be a physical therapist. And who was going to hire a 16-year-old?
Correct.
So he hired me to do that job, which allowed me to watch operations. I don't know anybody else who got a job like that.
Oh, wow. So were you scrubbing in the operating room then too, as well as just outside?
I was just an observer, but I was fully decked out in scrubs and a mask and all that kind of stuff, and watched. And I don't know if you've ever watched Grey's Anatomy.
Yes.
All those conversations that happen in the operating room, they really do happen.
Yes, they do. Yes, I used to sell medical devices for Boston Scientific, so I scrubbed in a lot, and it was fascinating, all the stories that would be told between the doctor and the techs and the nurses, and the humor and other things that are going on. It was just, it's a totally different culture, totally different environment. So
yeah. So for anybody listening, don't worry. We didn't talk about the patient themselves.
Right. Exactly.
We talked about everything else. I don't want anybody to be afraid of operations.
Right. No, it's always, it could be even as basic as, what'd you have for dinner? We're going to have this great bottle of wine. Me and my wife found this great bottle of wine tonight. Here's what we're having, or whatever. Right. So it's very fascinating what truly goes on in the operating room. That might be a whole book, right?
Right.
Speaking of books, as connections do change everything, my book, what are your tips and insights on how our listeners can span their connections in business?
Well, you know what? I believe strongly in networking groups and finding an alignment between the right type of networking groups. But the word network does involve work.
Yes.
So I belong personally to a network called Provisors. Yes. They're all trusted advisors to CEOs, teams, businesses, etc. I've been a member and a group leader within Provisors for 12 years. And what I found, transitioning, especially for entrepreneurs who are transitioning to a different life than their own company and being so focused in their business or on their business, it makes a huge difference to be out in the world and find people who are friends. So as a woman and as an entrepreneur who was actually in Newport Beach for much of my entrepreneurship, I didn't have many friends. I was very busy with my businesses. And when I went to my kids' soccer games or baseball games, all the other women were not entrepreneurs like me. Right. So I found a networking group where I found some very powerful women who are CPAs or attorneys of different stripes and marketing executives, etc. And that's where my connections grew. That's where my friendships grew. And I can't say enough about the community. It was wonderful for me, and gave me a chance to meet a lot of people and resources for my own clients. So that's what I do. But I guess it depends. It would be different for everyone.
No, but I agree, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're just switching out of being in corporate America to doing your own business. I firmly believe that networking or finding groups that resonate with you, as far as, whether it's women or other executives or other entrepreneurs, is really, really a necessary piece. One thing I didn't anticipate in starting my own business was just the isolation, and there's really no one to keep you accountable but yourself. There's no deadline from your boss, or you have to present to the board or the CEO, right? So it was a little bit of a shift. And I think finding a teamwork of people that are like-minded, that are entrepreneurial, that have, maybe they're different resources from an accounting or CPA or an attorney, but, collectively, I think you're all aligned in what your mission, and can share stories, experiences, and support. So there's a lot of networks out there. I belong to, I think, NABO for a while there, and I've really found some phenomenal women that we still continue to get together as friends and on our own accord without even in the organization. So it sounds like you found the same thing with Provisors.
So in a breakout room, I met a couple, or I had talked to a couple of women about the fact that I wanted to create an online course. And so we decided to create a little mastermind group. And as a result of meeting those women every single Monday since January, I created 7 courses.
Wow.
And I would really tell you it was because I didn't want to go to that meeting without progress. So I really credit the power of finding that small, intimate group of people with holding me accountable, just as you said. Otherwise, I'm just accountable to myself.
It's
And
difficult,
Enzo, my dog, baby, right? But other than that, that's how I created the courses. And they're all going live this week at scaleupschool.online. And they're courses about entrepreneurship and leadership, strategy, execution, cash management, and data management. And each one of those courses has numerous lessons, numerous of my book summaries, which I've been writing for 20 years, that support the lessons. And they're small sound bites, like it might be 2 hours altogether, but 6 minutes about this and 8 minutes about that. So that kind of thing. And I'm really proud of them. So.
Oh, they sound phenomenal. I'm going to take a peek at those myself. And for those listening, we're going to include access to Dr. Frumi's courses in the show notes as well. In addition, the title of her book again is CEO's Secret Weapon, which you can find on Amazon, but we'll also provide that in the show notes as well. In closing, because we're nearing the end of our time together, unfortunately, anything else you'd like to share with our audience, Frumi?
Don't be afraid to be bold.
I like that. Don't be afraid to be bold. And being bold, I think, helps you overcome fear. And I think bold is stronger than fear. And I think it's a lot of times it's fear that holds us back. So by being bold, we're overcoming our fear.
Exactly.
Great word. So I'd like to remind our guests again to purchase Dr. Frumi's book, A CEO's Secret Weapon, on Amazon. I'll also have information to access her courses and an opportunity to collaborate with her if you want to create your own course in the show notes. Thank you all for listening today on the Power of Connection and Biz show. If you like the content here today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I'd like to say again, thank you so much, Dr. Frumi, for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation, in addition to getting some great takeaways for myself and for our audience. So thanks again, and bye for now.
Bye for now.